Hamlet and jumping into Lear. We're in Act 5, Scene 2. Page 1146 in your edition. And we just finished on Tuesday with Hamlet and Horatio talking, and Horatio's trying to dissuade Hamlet from going through with the fencing match. Because Hamlet explains something doesn't feel right. And Horatio tries to get him to follow his gut. And Hamlet gave that little speech, beginning in line 217 through 222, saying, you know, if I'm not supposed to die today, then I'll die tomorrow. If I'm not supposed to die tomorrow, then I'll die today. In other words, it's out of my hands. It's kind of like whatever will be, will be. It is up to fate, etc. But it's not fate, because he begins that with their special providence in the fall of a sparrow. Very striking biblical allusion. And he makes the point, the readiness is all. That is, whenever one dies, one needs to be ready for death. Okay? Where do we see that earlier in the play? And by that I mean, we get a death early on, before the play begins, right? Hamlet Sr. Okay? What's the problem with Hamlet Sr.'s death, other than that he's murdered? According to what the ghost tells Hamlet, he died how? Layla? Or Nikki? Keep going.
And like he did, was it praying and he didn't get it?
Unforgiven. Okay? He wasn't allowed to go to confession, receive absolution for his sins. So he says he died with all his sins on his head. Therefore, he has to spend time in purgatory. Okay? He wasn't ready. Hamlet then sees, Act 3, Claudius doing what? And says, now I might do it a pat. He's praying. And Hamlet thinks about that a little bit. And he decides not to kill him then. Why? Because he'll be ready. He wants to do it when? Hamlet says. Catch him in his incestuous sheets, or doing some other wrong. In other words, when he's not ready. So, the readiness is all. Right? Since no man of aught he leaves knows, what is it to leave betimes? Let be. Let be. Let's just let it all work out. Okay? What's Hamlet trusting to here? Well, it's the providence that he refers to earlier in that speech. Okay? So, table's prepared. King, queen, Osric, all these folks come in. Laertes comes in. Hamlet comes. And notice, the king says, come, Hamlet, and take this hand from me. And he takes Laertes' hand and puts it in Hamlet's hand. For what purpose? Remember, maybe you don't remember. Remember what Lincoln says in his second inaugural. It's time to bind up the divisions. That's what Claudius is trying to do here. On the surface. Why on the surface?
He's about to kill him.
Yeah, because he's about to. They plotted to kill him. I mean, this is entirely for CNN. This is not serious. He doesn't really want Hamlet and Laertes to patch up their problems. Why? Go back to Richard II and why Richard banishes Bolingbroke and Mowbray, and what he says during their banishment.
He doesn't want them to rise up against him.
He doesn't want them to conspire against him. Okay? Because what have we already heard about the people in Hamlet and Laertes. They love them both. Laertes comes back from France, and it's like, we want Laertes king. Okay? So, Hamlet speaks to Laertes. Give me your pardon, sir. I have done you wrong, but pardon it as you are a gentleman. Okay? So Hamlet's asking for forgiveness. He's going to do that later, by the way, also. This presence, that is those here attending, knows, and you must needs have heard, how I am punished with the sword distraction. Notice, Hamlet doesn't say, I suffer from. I'm the victim of a poor distraction. He says, I'm punished. Well, if he's punished, then there must be what? A punisher. There must be something enacting that punishment. Okay? What I have done that might your nature, honor, and exception roughly awake. Roughly. That is, I've affronted you. I've accosted you. Okay? And what has he awakened? His nature. How? You killed my father. His blood is what that means. His honor. You killed my father. I've got to exact my revenge. And your exception. The exception, is your gloss for that? 229. His disapproval. Okay? I here proclaim was madness. It was madness that did these things. If Hamlet from himself be ta'en away, and when he's not himself does wrong Laertes, then Hamlet does it not. Now remember what Laertes said about Ophelia when she came in singing to the flowers and stuff. She's what? Separated from her judgment. Okay? So if Ophelia was separated from her judgment and committed suicide, then was it Ophelia that committed suicide? Or was it Ophelia's madness? And if it was Ophelia's madness, should Ophelia have received the rights of the church? It's an interesting issue. So, Hamlet says, and when he's not himself does wrong Laertes, then Hamlet does it not. Hamlet denies it. Wasn't me. It was the other me. Who does it then? His madness. It's the first insanity plea in the history of the human race. If it be so, that is, if I'm right, if this is true, Hamlet is of the faction that is wrong. That is, I'm with you, Laertes. You were wronged. By what? By my madness. So was I. Because the madness does what? To Hamlet's quote-unquote good name. Taints, sullies, we could use, those two important words. His madness is poor Hamlet's enemy. In this audience, that is, I want everybody to hear. Everybody is now witness to what I'm saying. Let my disclaiming from a purposed evil free me so far in your most generous thoughts that I have shot my arrow over the house and hurt my brother. Long way of saying what? I never meant to kill your father. Most important word there, it's not kill. It's meant. It's intention. In order to get first-degree murder, there has to be what? Intention. It is premeditated. Justifiable homicide isn't premeditated. Even neglect is not premeditated. There's no necessarily an intent there. Okay? I'm satisfied in nature. That is okay. My blood doesn't demand that I now kill you. Whose motive in this case should stir me most to revenge. Why? Because it's a revenge tragedy. And in revenge tragedy, somebody dies and that person's heirs or relatives have got to exact revenge on the murderer. Okay? But in terms of honor, nope, you haven't quite met that. I stand aloof. And will no reconcilement till by some elder masters of known honor I have a voce and precedent of peace to keep my name ungored. That is, we're going to have to talk to some elders, like some justices. I'm going to have to get some justice, okay, regarding my honor for that. Hamlet, cool. I embrace it freely. That's fine. We can do that. So, they take the foils. Laertes takes one. Hamlet, I'll be your foil, Laertes. Notice Shakespeare talking about the literary technique of a foil. In mine ignorance your skill shall, like a star in the darkest night, stick fiery off indeed. You mock me, sir. Okay. What did Hamlet prior say to Horatio when Horatio said you're going to lose? Anybody remember? Oh, no, not me. I've been practicing. And yet, what do we hear Gertrude shortly say about Hamlet? Just a couple moments. He's fat and out of breath. Okay? Is Laertes 30? We know Hamlet is. We're never told Laertes' age. But it just, to me at least, could be entirely wrong. It just doesn't feel like he is.
Can we kind of judge by Ophelia's age that,
I think Ophelia and Laertes are probably pretty close in age.
They seem very close.
He might be a couple years older. If she's, say, 18 and he's 20. 10 years younger. Does that give him a 10 years younger advantage? Between 20 and 30? Yeah. Okay. Hamlet, no, I'm not. So, Laertes says, no, I don't like this foil, and he takes another. Hamlet says, I like this one. They get ready to fence. The king has the stoops of wine, the goblets set up, and he says, I'll drink to your health, Hamlet, and they fence. 280 or so. Hamlet gets a hit. What does that mean? It means he touches Laertes on a specific part of his body. In a official fencing match, it's not anywhere on the body. You've got to hit a certain part in order for it to catch or count. Osric is the umpire of sorts. Okay. Osric says a hit, a very palpable hit. Well, what does palpable mean? You feel it. It's touchable. Okay. Laertes, okay, again. The king, stay, give me drink. Hamlet, this pearl is thine. And so he throws a pearl in Hamlet's cup. And he says, come on, Hamlet, drink. Why? What did he just put in the cup? That's the poison. Hamlet, no. Later. Another hit. Laertes, a touch. I confess it. Damn it, Our son shall win. Queen, he's fat and scant of breath. Here, Hamlet, take my napkin, rub thy brows, and she takes Hamlet's cup and quaffs a sip. It's the poison cup, too late. Notice an aside. So the king is sitting up there at the table, and Hamlet and Laertes are, and think about this just dramatically. How does he make this aside work? Does Shakespeare, do the Globe players, here's the stage, do they have the king and queen sitting out here so the action's going on back here? Because it's an aside, meaning nobody else up here is supposed to hear this. Only those of us out here. So does he say, it's the poison cup? So everybody hears? I'm just curious how that works. So, Laertes then says to the king, "My lord, I'll hit him now." Don't think you will. And yet it's almost against my conscience. Why? Why is it, notice, almost, which only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades. Why is it almost against his conscience? How did this little scene begin between Laertes and Hamlet?
Hamlet confessed, like, what he did wrong, and Laertes was like, "Oh, I'm fine right now, I'll think about it."
And Hamlet confessed. He said, it wasn't me really, it was my madness. I didn't mean to kill your father. Okay? So, they come for the third, they fence, and Laertes says, "Have at you now." Well, it's, not just playing anymore. Laertes wounds Hamlet, scuffling, they exchange rapiers. Hamlet wounds Laertes. The queen falls, and Horatio, great, they're bleeding. See, neither of them should be bleeding. Because in an official fencing match, the end of what's called the foil is baited. It has a rubber tip on it. Well, Laertes took the rubber tip off his and put the poison on it. Osric, how is it, Laertes? He kind of means, are you hurt? And how'd you get stuck? Why? And we hear Polonius's words, "As a woodcock to mine own spring," Osric. Because Polonius said Hamlet's letters to Ophelia were woodcocks to springs, traps. As a woodcock to mine own spring. Echoes back also to Hamlet talking to his mother about Gertrude, about Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. It's what? It's the sport of the engineer to be hoist with his own petard. Laertes has just been hoist with his own petard. Hoist, lift it up, petard, boom. The explosion. Okay? I am justly killed with mine own treachery. Notice, mine own. Does he blame Claudius? No. Why not? He says, I am justly. I think Shakespeare wants us to hear that and go back to Hamlet in Horatio's words just before the fencing scene. There's a divine providence in everything. This is divine justice. Laertes does what? Those who live by the sword die by the sword. Hamlet, how's the queen? Claudius, oh, she's just fainted because of the blood. No, the drink. Oh, Hamlet. O villainy, ho, let the door be locked. Treachery, seek it out. Okay? And Laertes falls. Treachery. How so? Well, who poisoned her? Hamlet doesn't know. So let's seek it out in the time we have left. In Laertes answers, here's the treachery, Hamlet. Hamlet, thou art slain. No medicine in the world can do thee good, and thee there is not half an hour's life. The treacherous instrument is in thy hand, unbaited and envenomed. The foul practice, in other words, it is like an adder fanged. Okay? The foul practice hath turned itself on me. I got what I deserve, he's kind of saying. Here I lie, never to rise again. Thy mother's poisoned. I can no more. Now, I can no more might mean I can do no more. Okay? Or it might mean that Shakespeare is using that word can in an older sense of meaning no. I know no more. the king. The king's to blame. Not for Laertes' death, Gertrude's. Oh, and the point in venom? Then venom to thy work. And he stabs the king. And notice, now, all the viewers yell what? Why? He killed the king. That's treason. It's not only assassination, it's treason. Oh, yet defend me, friends, I am but hurt. That is, I'm not slain. And Hamlet says, really? Want to bet? Takes his mouth and, waterboards him essentially with the wine. Hear thou incestuous, murderous, damned Dane. No forgiveness here. No calling a priest over. I got you in what? Kind of in the act of murder. Drink off this potion. Is thy union here? What union? Marriage. What did Claudius say? He called it an onion that he put in the cup. Why? It looks like a little pearl, like a little scallion. Okay? Follow my mother. That is to death. I don't think he means mom's going to hell. Could be wrong, but, Laertes, he is justly, there's that idea again. This is justice. He is justly served. It is a poison tempered, mixed by himself. And then Laertes does something important. Why? Because this is what, even though the question asks what kind of tragedy on the quiz is this, the correct answer is it's a revenge tragedy. Shakespeare modifies it. Why? Because in a typical revenge tragedy, you don't have people asking for forgiveness at the end. Okay? Exchange forgiveness with me, noble Hamlet. Mine and my father's death come not upon thee. So, my death and my father's death, let them not be held against you. Obviously, he's just granted Hamlet forgiveness. Why? Okay, keep in mind, Shakespeare's writing within a society imbued with Christian thinking. Our society doesn't have that imbuing. Our society is not, quote unquote, Christian like Shakespeare's was at the time. Okay? So, what would a common belief have been? For example, what is one of the petitions or clauses in the Lord's Prayer? Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. Forgive me. How? Just as I forgive others. What does that mean? Put it in the negative. If I don't forgive others, don't forgive me. And Christ also says, those whose sins you forgive, what? They are forgiven. So, Ben could forgive whatever my sins are in this, way of thinking, and they're gone then, according to that. What has Laertes just done? Hamlet, okay, now you have 25 minutes to go. Purgatory? These deaths aren't on you now. And he says, nor thine on me. And please, also in the few minutes we have left, forgive me too. Hamlet, heaven make thee free of it. Done. Washed clean. I follow thee. Okay, I'm right behind you, Laertes. I'm dead, Horatio. And like Bottom, he keeps talking. Or Pyramus, I should say. Wretched queen, adieu, you that look pale and tremble at this chance. Who are those? Who does he mean by the you? Is it the audience? That might be the secondary hearers. It's those on the stage. Well, who are those on the stage? Those that are in this room in the palace. What happened just before Hamlet and Laertes exchange forgiveness? What does Hamlet say when he finds out his mother is drunk poison? Treachery. Lock the doors. That is, don't let anybody know. Okay? So, you that look pale and tremble at this chance that are but mutes or audience to this act, that would be Osric, the other lords and ladies that are watching it. What? Had I but time. But he doesn't. As this fell Sergeant Death is strict in his arrest, oh, I could tell you. He could tell them what?
Everything that happened.
He's saying, I would unfold for you how my father really died. But let it be. Horatio, I am dead. Thou livest. What? Report me and my cause aright to the unsatisfied. Well, who are the unsatisfied? Everybody else in Denmark. Why are they unsatisfied?
They're like entire royal family just.
Okay.
And they would have questions.
Why would they have questions?
Because Hamlet kills the king.
Okay.
It's just a lot. Like, why's the queen dead? Like, there's no reason for her to be dead. Like,
Okay. Either I'm being much more clever than I think I am, or it's so obvious it's like the elephant in the room that you're all just completely missing it. The stage at this point, now we've got multiple dead bodies, right? We've got Gertrude, Claudius, Laertes are dead. Hamlet's still gasping for breath. Okay? What did Hamlet say just before all this began? Shut the doors. Why? Because the doors metaphorically mean this is now a closed, sealed hall. Who are the unsatisfied? Everybody outside there. That is, nobody outside knows what went on. Why? Really knows. They might hear about it later. Go ahead.
Because they're outside. They just got shoved out and they don't know, or not really shoved out, but they're locked out and they have no idea what's going on in there. They just hear chaos.
They hear. They hear what? Well, somebody's going to leave a door. You can't believe what just happened. What is that? That's hearsay. What do they lack? If we were doing Othello, they would lack what Othello says he must get from Iago about his wife's unfaithfulness. The ocular proof. Because nobody out here, what? Sees it for him or herself. Or hears it for him or herself. Okay? That's why Hamlet says, report me and my cause aright. Tell my story. And how? Truly. Horatio, never believe it. Nope. More an antique Roman than a Dane. That is, I'm more a Stoic. Here's yet some liquor left. Why? Because the ancient Stoics, when a servant's leader died, that servant, if that servant really loved that leader, read Julius Caesar, there's some examples of this, or even better, Antony and Cleopatra. When Antony's servant kills himself rather than kill Antony, does what? I'm going to follow you to death. Okay? And he tries to drink the liquor, and Hamlet says, nope, and he swallows it. Oh God, by God, Horatio, what a wounded name, thing standing thus unknown, shall I leave behind me. So, Horatio, if I die and things remain as they are now, and you die, Hamlet says, what will happen to my name? What will people say about me? He killed the king. He was crazy. Notice, his name will be wounded, with things standing thus unknown. What are the things? What happened here? Some of those are things that will be unknown. What else? The death of Hamlet Sr. Because what can Horatio, now Hamlet is freeing him from his earlier bond.
It's just a really random question.
Go ahead.
So technically, by him drinking the poison to prevent Horatio from drinking it, would that technically be committing suicide?
No, because he's already dying.
Okay.
He's already been poisoned.
So he should
It's now
finish
just
it.
like second dose.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he's already been stabbed by the poison foil. Okay? But, what other things unknown? How Hamlet Sr. died. The ghost. Because Horatio can say, saw it with my own two eyes. This isn't hearsay. Okay? Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. Because what do we know Hamlet has? He showed Horatio the letter from the king saying, England, kill Hamlet. So Horatio now has what? Only his word? He's got some proof. That's why Hamlet is saying, you have to live. If thou didst ever hold me in thy heart, absent thee from felicity a while. What's felicity? Happiness. What kind of happiness? Is it blessedness? Or is it the kind of felicity that Sophocles talks about at the very end of Oedipus the King? Count no man happy till he is dead, free of pain at last. That's the last line of that play. Count no man happy. It's not just till he's dead. It's till he's dead, free of pain at last. Why? Because as it's not Count Ruger, who is it? One of the baddies in Princess Bride famously says, life is pain, Highness. And that's what Oedipus, the play, teaches. Life here is pain, and then you die. Pardon? Prince Humperdinck, thank you. I was thinking it was the other guy. Not the six-fingered man. Yeah, it is Prince Humperdinck. It's when he goes to torture Wesley. Or shortly before then. Okay? So, absent thee from felicity a while, and in this harsh world, there we are, draw thy breath in pain to tell my story. Sorry, Horatio, I'm going to make you live on a little bit longer. Why? To be kind of like my evangelist, to tell my truth. Okay? And then he tells Horatio, again, kind of like Pyramus, it's not, I'm dead, I'm dead. I die, Horatio. The potent poison quite overcrows my spirit. I cannot live to hear the news from England. What's the news from England? Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead. Tom Stoppard's title of the book. But I do prophesy the election lights on Fortinbras. The election. The election of the Council of Elders, of Advisors. When he says, I prophesy, he goes on and then says, I vote for him. Well, that pretty much cinches the vote. The dying prince with his dying breath. Okay? The rest is silence. And he dies. Yeah.
Would at that moment Hamlet technically be king?
Interesting question. If it were in England, probably. Because once the previous monarch is dead, the next one, quote unquote, in line, yes. You know, kind of metaphysically, immediately, the grace that was on the once living king transfers to the new king, but you still have to have the later ceremony, the rite of investiture and all that kind of stuff.
Isn't Fortinbras already a king of Norway? Or was he defeated?
He's king of Norway. So now he's going to be king of Norway and Denmark. Yeah. Back in the late Anglo-Saxon period, when Ethelred II, Ethelred the Unred, fled England, when Svein Forkbeard and his son invaded, Svein temporarily became king, and then his son, Canute, became king. He was Canute, king of Norway and king of England. Shakespeare's day, Queen Elizabeth dies. James VI of Scotland comes down and becomes James I of England. So he's James I of England, king of England, James VI of Scotland, king of Scotland. It's only later that the monarchy kind of, you get the Act of Union in, I think it is 1710, where it's king of England and Scotland. Okay? So, Horatio now cracks a noble heart, good night, sweet prince, and flights of angels sing thee to thy rest. Horatio then, little speech towards the end, says, I'm going to skip a bit, line 380, let me speak to the unknowing world how these things came about. Because Fortinbras come in and he's like, what the hell is going on? I mean, bodies are piled up in corners. How these things came about, so shall you hear of carnal, bloody, and unnatural acts. Of accidental judgments. What kind of accidental judgments? What ho, a rat! Casual slaughters. That was casual also, by the way. Of deaths put on by cunning and forced cause, Claudius and Laertes. And in this upshot, purposes mistook, fallen on the inventors' heads. Purposes mistook. Purposes that what? Went awry. Fallen on the inventors' heads, hoist by their own petard. Okay? And I'm not sure, and this thought just came to me, so it could be entirely wrong. Never know whether or not I should run with these thoughts, but I'll mention it anyways. Shakespeare, being biblically literate as he was, and Shakespeare was very biblically literate, because he's already talked about divine providence and the falling of the sparrow and such, and he's talking about purposes mistook, I kind of wonder if somewhere in the back of his mind, he has the idea of Joseph. Bingo. Whose brothers, put him in a hole and then sell him without Reuben's blessing, by the way. Reuben isn't aware of that. Sell him off into slavery, and later on, when they finally meet up again, many years later, Joseph says, what you intended for evil, God intended for good. In other words, their purposes mistook. Okay? But because there's the divine providence that overrules even the falling of a sparrow. So, we end the play with Fortinbras doing what? Let four captains, and then I'm going to go back to the very beginning of the play for a moment, and then Hamlet's last word. Let four captains bear Hamlet like a soldier to the stage. For he was likely, had he been put on, to have proved most royal. man, he would have been a good king, Fortinbras is saying. And for his passage, the soldier's music and the rite of war speak loudly for him. Fortinbras is saying Hamlet, because of how he died, deserves what?
The soldier's sentence.
A soldier's send-off. He deserves an Arlington National Cemetery kind of funeral. Why? He died like a soldier. This was battle for Hamlet. This was war for him. Take up the bodies. Such a sight as this becomes the field. That is the battlefield. Okay, go back to the very beginning of the play before we start Lear. What are the first two words? Come on, it's not hard. Who's there? Okay. What are Hamlet's last four words? The rest is silence. Think of those two statements kind of bookending the play in a sense. I know we get a little bit more after the rest is silence. But in terms of Hamlet and Hamlet's character, what might Shakespeare be suggesting? And I'm going to use this as the lead off to Lear in this kind of context. Okay? Hamlet's written 1599-1601. Bear in mind his son dies in 1596. Okay? We get Hamlet 1599-1601. We get Richard II around 1599. Okay? Another tragedy, even though it is part of the history plays, it's the tragedy of King Richard II by the title in the first folio and stuff. We get Macbeth 1603, 1604. Lear, sometime after Macbeth, we know. Okay? 1604, 1605. We know it's produced early 1606, so it's probably written in 1605. We get Othello 1606, 1607. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4 real major, okay, I mean just huge tragedies in roughly a 6 to 7 year period. Following very shortly on the death of his son. Related? Is there anything that ties them together? What might the death of a son cause Shakespeare to start thinking about? Because his father is still alive. Mortality, obviously. His own mortality. What else? The undiscovered country from who's born. How about, well, damn, that's not fair. What's the purpose of life? I mean, Hamlet asks those questions. Why bear the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune? Okay. Other poets at about the same time are having their children die. Ben Jonson, who wrote a big long epitaph on Shakespeare. His first son died when he was 7 years old. His first daughter died when she was 6 months old. He wrote epitaphs on both of them. Prior, if I remember correctly, to like 1610. Okay? And in both of those, he's kind of like, okay, I believe. In Shakespeare, in the plays at least, there's a lot more doubt. Notice, Hamlet tells Horatio, there's a divinity that shapes our ends, Horatio. Rough hew them as we will. Our ends, our lives. Rough hew them. How do you To rough hew means to take a piece of wood and, like an axe, and shape the wood into a square. That is, you're not then taking a plane and making it smooth as glass, okay? So that it's rough, you can get splinters on it. So he says, our decisions, our actions, what? They rough hew. And yet there's a divinity that does what? It takes that overall shape. Hamlet is suggesting there, our actions work in tandem with providence. Okay? The old Greek word that is used in the New Testament that gets wildly overused today in commercial contexts, political contexts, university academic BS is the idea of synergy. Sin meaning together, it's not S-I-N, it's sin like synonymous, okay? Sin meaning together in action. The only problem is what? I won't say this about you, I'll say it about me. I am a Christian, Orthodox Christian, but that doesn't mean every decision I make, I go, well, I know exactly what God's doing. No, it's, I'm as blind as a bat. Right? Shakespeare, I think, is kind of wrestling with some of these issues. Okay? Just as, I had said, this is probably the most religious play. Or the most Christian play might be the better way of putting that. Christian in all of its multi-colored varieties. Catholic, Protestant, Puritan Protestant, etc. Yeah, he's wrestling with the various denominational stuff, but it's the, it's Romans 8:28. Everything works out for the good for those who love God. Now turn to Lear. How many of you have read Lear before? Nobody. If you're interested, if you're an Amazon Prime member, I think it's still on. There's a BBC version, BBC/Amazon Prime version of Lear on Amazon with Anthony Hopkins as Lear. Anthony Hopkins first played Lear, I read an article several months ago, when he was 48. And then he did, in this article, he said, now doing Lear at 80. He said, I was a damn fool thinking I could do Lear at 48. You can't do Lear, Hopkins says. Really? Until you're Lear's age. Why? Because that door into the undiscovered country, it's a lot more up close and personal when you're at 80 than you are at 48. Why? What's the play about? It's about an old man who's confronting death. I mean, that, to some extent, at least, that's what it's about. So, you begin, and you have Lear, King of Britain. When's it set? Pre-Christian times. This is Celtic Britain. Okay. Lear, spelled either what does that say? I have no idea what that says. Celtic.
Yeah.
Wow.
I thought it said Celtic.
It's also spelled that way. Okay, Lear's name. Your introduction mentions there was another play about the history of Lear that was published in 1594. Okay, I think it's 1594. Anyways, Lear, king, has 3 daughters: Goneril, Regan, and Cordelia. Okay, and what's the really huge, overarching, top-level plot? Close. Lear's tired of being king. He's 80 years old. He's done. So what does he want to do?
He wants to just partition the rest of his land.
He wants to give it up. He wants his daughters to reign instead. What's the problem with that? Okay, he's got 3 daughters. You know, they're gonna. What else? What's the other problem?
Kings don't retire.
Why not? It's the great chain of being. You can't just up one day and say, oh, you know, I'm tired of being king. I'm going to stop. Why? Because chooses when you stop. The gods, as they're referred to in here, the gods are what make you king, and the gods are what break you and make you not king anymore. You don't have a say in the matter. Or in Shakespeare's mindset, the Renaissance mindset, in that great chain of being, you can't suddenly decide, I don't want to do this anymore. Because what does that do? It removes the link. It removes the proper link. You can't say, well, I'm going to pass it on to this one. No, because that's not the proper link. So, yeah.
What do you know what gods they're talking like they're referring to specifically? Like what were the gods that like?
No, and they're not referred to. I mean, it's just, you know, probably what he means by gods, the powers that be. Whatever the forces of the nature in the universe are, those. I mean, in Celtic Britain, we do know they had a Celtic pantheon. Some of the gods were named, but most of those gods, we don't know their names. The names that we get attached to many of those Celtic gods today come from writings in the 17th century by supposed Druids. The Druids died out during the time of Julius Caesar. Okay? And guess what? They didn't write anything. All the Druidic knowledge was passed on orally. Okay? So, you know, sorry if I offend any, you know, future wannabe Druids in here. People who dress up in sheets and go to Stonehenge at the summer solstice and say that's a bunch of nonsense. It's utter and complete nonsense. Because there weren't any Druids from 300 AD to 1700. And it's about in 1700 when people start to saying, oh yeah, I'm a Druid and this is what Druids believe. The whole thing about worshiping oaks. The only way we know some of that is because Caesar talked about it in some of his writings, Gallic Wars. Because the Gauls were Celts. Okay? Book of Galatians, written to Galatia. The Gal there is the same as this. Okay, take my history of English language class. You'll also find out all that is related to that, like in holster, and hole, and cellar. It goes way back to about 4000 BC. Okay, so play begins with Kent talking to Gloucester. And notice, I thought the king had more affected the duke. Well, let me back up. Let's look at the dramatis persona, get the characters in mind. So you have King Lear, his 3 daughters, Goneril, Regan, Cordelia, in that order. That's the order of age. Okay. You have the Duke of Albany, who's Goneril's husband. Cornwall is Regan's husband. King of France is Cordelia's suitor, and then marries her. You have the Duke of Burgundy, who is also a suitor, but once Lear removes all her dowry, he's like, well, I don't want her anymore. You know, she's poor. You have the Earl of Kent, later disguised as, by the way, it looks like Caius, it's pronounced Keys in British English. And then you have the Earl of Gloucester, just called Gloucester. Kent is just called Kent. They don't call him Earl of, etc. Edgar, Gloucester's son and heir. He's the heir. Why? Because he's the eldest brother. Later disguised as Poor Tom, also referred to as Tom of Bedlam. We'll talk about that. And then you have Edmund, Gloucester's bastard son. Edmund, like Iago, like Richard III, is one of Shakespeare's great villains. He just loves being a villain. Okay. Oswald, Goneril's steward. You have a knight serving Lear. You've got Lear's fool. And then several other people who are relatively unimportant. So, play opens with Kent talking to Gloucester. Notice, they're both earls. They're equals. Okay? I thought the king had more affected the Duke of Albany than Cornwall. Duke of Albany, Goneril's husband, Cornwall, Regan's husband. Yeah, I thought so too. But now in the division of the kingdom, it appears not which of the dukes he values most, for equalities are so weighed that curiosity and neither can make choice of either's moiety, that is, of either's worth, etc. Isn't this your son? Because Edmund's there. His breeding, sir, hath been at my charge. That is, I'm told he is. What's he mean? Might be, might not. I mean, you could trust women. I cannot conceive you. Well, his mother could. Whereupon she grew round-wombed and had indeed, sir, a son for a cradle, ere she had a husband for her bed. Do you smell a fault? That is a problem? Kent says, looking at him, he's a superb specimen. This looks fine. Yeah, but I also have a son by order of law. That is, who is begotten how? In marriage. Some year elder than this, who is yet no dear in my account. So what has Gloucester just told us about his two sons?
One of them is a bastard.
One's a bastard, one's legitimate. What else?
He likes one, doesn't like the other.
Does he say that? He likes them the same or loves them the same. How much? Does he talk like he loves either of his sons? No, Gloucester's an SOB at the beginning of the play. He really is. Okay? So he asked Edmund, Edmund, do you know this noble gentleman? No, my lord. My lord of Kent, remember him hereafter as my honorable friend. My services. Okay? So, Lear comes in. France and Burgundy come in. Gloucester comes in. And what does Lear say? Meantime, we shall express our darker purpose. Darker. Hidden. Hidden from everybody else. Okay? Bring me the map. He takes the map. And he says, we've divided the kingdom. Why? 'Tis our fast intent to shake all cares and business from our age, conferring them on younger strengths while we, unburdened, crawl toward death. Why crawl toward death? Is this the old Sphinx's riddle? A man walks on four legs in the morning, baby, 2 in the afternoon as an adult, and 3 with a cane? I don't think so. Is it death coming slowly? But why crawl? Why not walk? Why not be like Harry Potter? Stride into the forbidden forest, to meet your destiny.
He doesn't have the strength.
Is it that he doesn't have the strength? Okay. So, he appeals to Cornwall, Albany, and says, we're going to publish our daughters' dowers today. That is, what you get for having married them. And you, Burgundy or France, you'll see how much Cordelia brings with her. So, how's he going to divide their dowry? And the dowry is what? A portion of the kingdom. Notice, I've divided it in 3. Does he divide it into 3 equal sections? No. One's bigger than the other, which is bigger than the other. How's he going to divide it?
By who loves him the most.
Is it by oldest? Is it by who loves him the most? So, which of you, shall we say, doth love us most? What's that tell us about Lear?
He likes to be flattered.
Likes to be flattered. What else? Narcissistic. Blankety, blankety, blank. Who talks like this? Little kids. Insecure people. Okay? I love you this, no, I love you this much. And that's what his daughters do. Well, two of them at least. They play the game. Why? Because they're as bad as dad. They want the biggest piece of property. So, Goneril, I love you more than words can wield the matter. Dearer than eyesight, space, and liberty beyond what can be valued, rich or rare, no less than life with grace, health, beauty, honor, as much as child ever loved or father found. Beyond all manner of so much, I love you. I love you more than words can say. You know, there was a song that had those lyrics. Cordelia, what shall I speak? Love and be silent. Yeah, but that's not what he asked for. So he goes, all right, good answer. Goneril, you get this. Reagan. Because now he says, okay, what do you say? What she said and more. That's pretty much what Reagan says. Self-same metal as my sister, and I find she names my very deed of love, but she comes too short. That's the and more. Ditto times 2. Okay? Cordelia, again. Then poor Cordelia, and yet not so, since I'm sure my love's more ponderous than my tongue. What does ponderous mean? Not the verb to ponder, which means to think, to meditate on. It means weighty, heavy. My love has so much stuff to it that she can't what? Put it into her mouth. It is of such great weight, gravity, it can't be spoken about. Why do I love you? Beats me. That's the correct answer, by the way. If you're in a relationship and the other person says, why do you love me? It's never because of your eyes, because of your smile, because of your face, because of your personality, because those are all what? Things. It's the whole package. It's you. I don't know. Which, you know, it's kind of dangerous too to say, I don't know, because it might be. Really? You know, well, what about? What do you think about? So he goes, okay, you get this. And now, Cordelia, you speak. Nothing, my lord. Nothing? Nothing. Nothing will come of nothing. Speak again. You want a Christmas present? You better tell me you love me. Unhappy that I am, I cannot heave my heart into my mouth. I love your majesty according to my bond. No more nor less. What is her bond?
A relationship.
Yeah. You're my father. I love you like a daughter ought to love her father. That's it. Is there anything wrong with that statement? No. No, that statement is perfectly fine. Unless you have a super ego that needs to be stroked an awful lot.
Unless you want people to worship you rather.
You want people to worship you. Or James said, you're really insecure and you're not sure. So, mend your speech a little, lest you may mar your fortunes. And so she's like, okay. How's this? Let me try this on. Good, my lord, you have begot me. Right? Because, go back to, Matthew. It's begat. You have begot me, bred me, loved me. I return those duties back as are right fit. That is, because you have begot me, I return the duty requires me back to you. That you've bred me, I return the duty that requires back to you. That you have loved me, I love you. Why? It's give and take. Pure. It's a simple mathematical equation. I obey you, love you, and most honor you. See, if only Hermia had answered like this to her father, there'd be no problems. But she doesn't. Why have my sisters husbands if they say they love you all? Now that's a pretty damn good question. Because think of the darker side of what that response suggests. We're kind of Claudius and Gertrude-ish. If they love you all, why are they married to those guys? Why don't you get all their love? Happily, or by chance, when I wed, she's saying, assuming I do get married, because, you might be screwing me over here, Dad. I might just lose all shots, When I shall wed, that Lord whose hand must take my plight shall carry half my love with him, half my care and duty. Why half? I thought when you got married, you're supposed to give your all. It's 100%. It's not, hey, baby, 50%. And you got to come 52. Why half? Yeah. What half doesn't her father get? Romantic, erotic love, we hope. Weird, otherwise, because then you are literally back into Oedipus and Sophocles, and he shall carry half my love with him, half my care and duty. Sure, I shall never marry like my sisters to love my father all. Now, if you listen carefully to Cordelia, what might she kind of be hinting at to, I don't know, Albany and Cornwall? Okay, what else? You sure they really love you guys? Of course, Albany and Cornwall, I think it's pretty much implied, marry Goneril and Regan for what reasons? Land, title, Goes thy heart with this? Because prayers to heaven go without thoughts, what? Stay below. Are you sincere? Is this what you really believe? Aye. So young and so untender. Untender. Hard. Flint-like. So young, my lord, and true. Cordelia's raising an issue that Lear is blind to. True meaning what? Not only this kind of true that we've talked about, but the everyday ordinary. Honest. She's kind of going, look they at my isters say, and oh nay, they're not root trait. They're not telling you the truth. Let it be so. Thy truth then be thy dower. Truth's going to keep you warm at night, isn't it? Truth's going to enable you to go buy groceries from, wherever. For by the sacred radiance of the sun, there's possibly a God right there, the sun. The mysteries, there's one, of Hecate in the night. By all the operation of the orbs, there's the 9 spheres. From whom we do exist and cease to be. Notice, the planets govern our fates. Here I disclaim all my paternal care, propinquity and property of blood. And as a stranger to my heart and me, hold thee from this forever. So as he just said, okay, you don't get the third bit of land, I'll divide that up amongst your other sisters. What's he just done? He's disowned her. What else?
Taking away her dowry.
Taking away her dowry. What else? It's like he's saying, you are no longer part of my family. He's made her outcast. The barbarous Scythian, or he that makes his generation messes to gorge his appetite, like Thyestes, ancient Greek myth, the family of Atreus and such. He's talking about, and he who kills his family to do what? To cook them and eat them. Shall to my bosom be as well neighbored, pitied, and relieved as thou my sometime daughter. Now I'll have cannibals over, and they'll be closer to me than you will be. Kent. Oh, good, my liege. Peace, shut up. Don't start. Come not between the dragon and his wrath. Why? The dragon is the Celtic symbol of authority and power. Okay? Arthur and Uther pin dragon. It's that image. I loved her most, and thought to set my rest on her kind nursery. That is, she would take care of me and my old daughter in age. Then why didn't he say so at the beginning? Why express our darker purpose in dark forms? Why not just come out and say, Cordelia, I love you most. Will you take care of me? Because through the course of the play, what do you find out? Obviously, because she makes it clear here. She loves him the most. Yes, Dad, I'll take... Well, one reason is because the play would end not even after the first scene. Okay? So, he divides up the other territory to Cornwall and Albany and such. And Kent, not done. Royal Lear, whom I have ever honored as my king, loved as my father, as my master followed, as my great patron thought on in my prayers. The bow has been to drawn. In other words, let fly the shaft. All right, you've set it up. Get to the point. Let it fall, rather, though the fork invade the region of my heart. Be Kent unmannerly when Lear is mad. Unmannerly. Go against custom. Go against manners. Go against the proper procedure of the court. What wouldst thou do? Next two words. Old man. What's Kent trying to do? Louder?
Antagonize him?
Okay, for what purpose? I mean, I think that's possible. He's trying to jar Lear into what? Into sanity. He's trying to go, Lear, listen, you damn old fool. Thinkst thou that duty shall have dread to speak when power to flattery bows? Power, kingship, is bowing to what play that we've already read is all about power bowing to flattery. Or at least an awful lot of it. Close. Richard II. Because Richard has all the power. What does he do? He bows to the flattery of his large court. And it's why Henry IV comes in. When majesty falls to folly. What is folly? It's foolishness. It's unreason. Reserve thy state. Reserve. Hold it back. That means your kingship. Keep your kingship. And in thy best consideration, check this hideous rashness. Consideration. Thought. When you're thinking a little more clearly, think about what you're thinking of doing. Thy youngest daughter does not love thee least, nor are those empty-headed, whose low sounds reverb no hollowness. Okay, we'll stop there. So we got into Lear.
You did it.
We'll get a lot more into Lear next Tuesday, assuming anybody is here.